Hi everybody, my name is Sarah Fernandez-Lopez with Bad Dog Agility and you're watching the Bad Dog Agility Show. First off, I want to get a mic check. We're broadcasting here live. We want to make sure everybody can hear us. Give us a thumbs up or a heart if you can hear us. Just want to make sure we can hear everything. All right, sounds like the sound looks good. All right, so today we're going to be talking about dogs that check out on the start line. So what I mean by checking out is that the dog may sit when you ask them to, but at some point during your lead out, they start looking around, getting distracted, and they might even break their start line. If they hold their start line, they may be hard to get off the line. So as you're leading out, they may be looking around and you have to clap to get their attention, and they may be slow off the first couple of jumps. So we're going to show you how we would fix that. So what people usually do on their lead outs is they set up their dog, and let's talk about practice. What most people are going to do in practice is they're going to set up their dog and they might reward a couple of times right here at the beginning. Then they may lead out to the first obstacle, and a lot of great trainers are going to go back and reward. So that's really good. Another thing that we'll see people do is they'll lead out and they'll throw a toy back to reward the dog. That's really great too. But there's a problem that comes up when all of our start line training and all of our reinforcement for our start line training happens right where the dog is or right where the lead out is. And that is that dogs learn that this whole space in between where I started and where I finish my lead out is a time when nothing's going to happen and they don't need to pay attention. So it's kind of like those work meetings where everybody calls in and everybody's going one by one and giving their status, and after you've given your status you kind of check out and you don't really listen until you hear your name, and then you're not quite sure what the question was. That's what happens to our dogs. So what we want to do now is we want to show you a video of a dog that's totally checking out on the start line, and Brittany's nice enough to let us show this video. So here we have Brittany's baby dog Trek. And you can see that she just is looking around over her shoulder, checking everything out. So this is the behavior that we want to make sure that we eliminate in our dogs. So the way that we like to address this is to say we don't want to be predictable in this whole long lead out. We want to reward our dog in lots of different areas. We want to reward them sometimes from hand. We want to reward them sometimes with a toy. We want to start to lead out and release them while we're moving and not always walk and then stop and then release our dog. But we've got to build up this reinforcement history all through this area. And that's going to do a couple of different things. Number one, it's going to keep their focus on you, because at any moment, from the very moment that you said sit, you might be giving them a treat or releasing them to a tug. So, you know, you're going to say sit and they're just going to look at you the whole time, and that's not going to give them the opportunity to notice all of the things in their environment and to look around, to get distracted or to get nervous. So we had a couple of different people emailing in that had dogs that maybe lacked a little bit of confidence on the start line, were concerned about dogs behind them. When you train your start line like this, it's actually going to help you in two different ways. Number one, you're going to keep their attention on you. Number two, your rewarding starts more. So it becomes more reinforcing. They become more happy. Their attitude comes up for that behavior. So I just wanted to address a couple of people that did email in ahead of time. Beverly was saying that he maybe relaxed before the start line, but once she puts him in a sit, he's busy watching everything. So that's exactly what we're talking about, this checking out behavior. And we're going to eliminate that with this program of lots of rewards. people talk about their dog being slow and distracted off the start line. Crystal says that her dog is slow and distracted off the start line. So if they're paying attention to you, they're going to be more likely to release on command. And you can also build in some of the behaviors that you're doing on your start line into your routine. Are we doing all right? Oh, okay. My tech help over there told me that it might be stuck. You can give me some thumbs up and some hearts and let us know that you can hear everything that we're saying out here. All right, so what we do want to do is, we're good? All right, we're good. Sorry about that, guys. We are cutting edge here on the technology. But what we do want to do is bring out a couple of dogs and just show you with the dog the kind of lead out training that we're doing. So Brittany will go get her dog first. One thing that I like to tell people when they have a problem with start lines is you need to decide whether you're working on start lines or whether you're working on handling. And you need to add in some of this start line training. And you can make sure that that you do some sessions that are just about the start line. And then you know going in that that's your focus. So you aren't so worried about getting out there and doing the sequence and getting it right because you've already mentally prepared yourself for spending some time and some repetitions on the start line. So this is the same dog that we just saw. She's a Sheltie, so she does like to bark on the start. So there, Brittany's showing how she's going to go and come back. So see there, she gave a rapid fire, immediately came back to the dog, and you can see how much better she's paying attention. She said, oh my goodness, I got that treat after just one step, I better pay attention. For a lot of dogs, the release is also a reward. So you don't always have to reward them with a treat or a toy. You can reward them with going on. Yep. Yeah, why don't you get Gitchy? Now we're going to bring out Gitchy. A lot of you may have seen Gitchy a lot last year in our videos. We did a lot of demonstrations with her. She competed at Nationals. She competed at Westminster. Gitchy is just coming back to train with us after having puppies. So this will be great refresher training since Gitchy and Esteban haven't been working together for many months. So you can see that Esteban is extremely unpredictable. He wasn't necessarily looking at her or anything when he let out. There we go. Somehow these dogs know when we're demoing. So Esteban is the king of being unpredictable. There is nothing about his body, about his voice, about where he is that predicts whether he's going to give that click. All right, thank you, Esteban and Gitchy. So we want to thank everybody who wrote in, who commented ahead of time, and it was basically variations of a theme. Dogs that get distracted, dogs that are slow off the start, dogs that get worried at the start line. We had Kathy, Crystal, Beverly, Sue, all talking about this. Allison with her Aussie, stressed at the start and worried. And the combination of building up the reinforcement history for starts in general, because it's something that a lot of people don't put very much reward into. So they may reward 1 start out of 10. We prefer to reward, 5 or 6 out of, like half and half, to build up that behavior and to make it something that your dog is really happy to be doing. And so building up that reinforcement, and the other thing about these rapid fire rewards, so taking 1 step and rewarding, taking 2 steps and rewarding, is you can get more start line rewards in let's say a minute than you could if every single time you let out all of the way. So just that also raises the rate of reinforcement and is going to build up this behavior. So do we have any questions for Q&A? All right, so someone's going to come over here with some Q&A.
All right, can you click the 2? Thank you.
Little wardrobe change here. There you go.
Hello, everyone. We've got some questions. So I've got my phone out here so that I can see some of your questions here. And so the first question is from Beth, and she wants to know, does placement of reward matter? One of the common pieces of advice you're going to get from a lot of agility trainers, very good agility trainers, is to always reward in position. They want you to lead out and come back and always reward in position. I think Sarah talked about that a little bit. And I like to put my rewards all over the place. So as you saw when I was working Gitchy, sometimes I'm going to release her, and she's going to come to me and tug with me. The toy is being rewarded on my person. Same thing with food. You can feed them with hand. Sometimes I like to throw the toy out in front of them. Sometimes I will throw the toy behind them. So does reward placement matter? Yes, to me. I like to be unpredictable and put it in a variety of places. This way the dog is always looking at me, and they never even know sometimes which way they're going to be released. So a lot of dogs that kind of creep forward and they keep coming and they keep coming, it's because you're always rewarding from your hand. So even if you walk back toward them, they will move towards you to meet the food. But if on occasion you're going to throw the food off to the side, throw the toy off to the side, they're not always going to keep coming forward on you. So that's one trick that I like to use. The next question comes from Mary. She wants to know, is the click her release, or am I saying something as well? The answer is, I do say both. The click always comes first. I say click, and then I'll say get it or okay. Gitchy has several release words. I know that there are some trainers, when they're doing position, kind of obedience type stuff, a click doesn't necessarily mean that they should break or be released. In my case, when I click, behavior's done. The dog can do whatever they want. Drop a bar, run off, jump into a river, I don't care. The click ends the behavior for me. But for every trainer, that's going to be different. So very good question. Click first, and then I will usually say get it or okay. The next question comes from Heidi. Her dog is breaking the release at the start line in trials, but does pretty good in practice, and this is very common. Usually has to do with criteria. Remember, a trial environment is so much tougher than the environment you see out here in practice. And in practice, a lot of you are only rewarding at the dog, and you're only rewarding or releasing over here. So in practice, what I recommend is exactly what Sarah's talking about. Let's reward everything in between. Now you've got to take that practice, all that training that you did in your field, and take it to a different environment. Ideally, you would go to a show and go. If you're not entered in a trial, use that trial as a show and go, or if you are entered in a trial. So you'll go to the trial, find a nice, quiet place to start, maybe outside of the arena even, if your dog can't be around agility with the distractions and you want to work up to it. And you're going to do that, and a practice jump is a great place to do it when no one's using it. When there's an actual walkthrough, a lot of people don't like to use the practice jump. So that there are dead times when no one's using the practice jump, set your dog up and do all of those things. So exactly what we were doing out here in the practice field, what I did with Gitchy, that's what you want to do. And if I feel like she's a little worried about her environment, because she can occasionally be a little bit nervous, like when I was at Westminster, I want to get her to a practice jump. I'm not really there to warm up her muscles or anything. I'm there to work on her start lines. And so that's what you can do in the trial environment. And then hopefully when you get into the ring, you've got this nice reinforcement history, not just at practice, but also in a trial environment, outside of the arena, now inside the arena, now at the warm-up jump, now by the ring. And those are things where you have a 6-foot leash and you can lead out in intervals of 1 step. So if I got my dog on a leash, I'm next to the ring, there's no dog running yet. That's the best time to do it. It's less distracting for your dog. I'll reward here. The next rep might be 2 feet, reward. Next one, 1 feet, then 3 feet, and so on and so forth. All right, so hopefully that will help get you started in the right direction. But basically, you need to make sure that your trialing and your practicing are very, very similar, and there's no difference between the two. Let's see here. Sometimes she'll freeze at the start line if I lead out. So a lot of dogs do this, and I think the key for most of these dogs is going to be building high value, a lot of reinforcement for the release word. And I think what people don't do very well is making the start line behavior super exciting. So Gitchy gets really pumped up to do start lines. You can see she's really edging to go, okay? And she wants to explode out of it. And that's what you want. And you do that by using the reinforcement that the dog really, really wants. If you're at work and you're having a very slow day, you're sitting at your desk, you're not very excited to get up and go to a meeting. But your boss comes and says, we've got a meeting in 5 minutes. If you go and we get there right now, if you can get there in the next 30 seconds, up 3 flights of stairs, I'm going to give you a $100,000 bonus. You are going to jump out of that chair, head for the stairwell, and get to that meeting as fast as possible. And that's the kind of environment we need to create for your dog. So what most people are doing is using a single piece of kibble on very rare occasions and really focusing, like Sarah mentioned, on the agility part. They're not making the start line stay as fun and as exciting as doing the jumps, the tunnels, the A-frames, and the weave poles. We all know to build a lot of value into those obstacles. And what I like to do is think of the start line as another obstacle. So if your dog's not exploding out of that start line, you need to increase your reinforcement rate, make your rewards better until you get that performance in practice. If they're doing very well in practice and they're not doing as well in shows, there may be other issues, maybe some anxiety or nervousness about the environment that you might have to work through that aren't necessarily 100% related to how you're training or reinforcing. All right, hopefully all of that makes sense. Let's see here. Sometimes your dog will just sit there. Okay, we just addressed that one. That was also from Debbie. And I think that's good. Were there any other questions that I might have missed? Dogs do get nervous and worried on the start line, and you do have to know, you can come in, and you do have to kind of know the situation. So I'll tell you one quick story. I was at AKC Nationals last year, and Gitchy was the dog that when I started working with her, her start lines were really poor. Had to retrain them. And they turned into very, very good start lines, and that gave her a lot of confidence. She started courses faster than she was before. Her yards per second kept improving, and she was able to do really great things. But we got to Nationals, and the dog in the ring next to us was finishing up exactly where Gitchy was starting. So her back is to this ring and this dog is coming over a jump, yeah, and it startled her, and she jumped up, okay? And that's clearly breaking criteria. Two things to note here. One, it's Nationals, so that's not the time you're gonna walk your dog off. But two, just understanding and being aware, I also saw that dog, and I thought as the handler, I was getting ready to run over there because I thought that dog was actually gonna jump the fencing and come into Gitchy's ring. That's how alarming it looked as that dog came over that last line, finished with like a double or something, and then was really close to her and was making a lot of noise. It was alarming to me as the handler. So I think those are situations that you want to be aware of, that there are things in the environment that can really affect your dog, and to know, you know, is my dog, you know, really checked out? Is it proper or appropriate for me to leave the ring? That sort of thing. You kind of got to know the situation there. But those things can definitely happen. But even nervous and anxious dogs, another border collie, her name is Rook, she doesn't like thunder. She's able to run in thunder, but as you set her up, her start line isn't going to be as good as it normally is, because some of her concentration, it's not 100%. Some portion of it, 10, 15, 20, 30%, is worried about the thunder, right? So anxiety, fearfulness, awareness of the surrounding, strange looking men who are running the leashes, children, if your dogs don't like children, these are all things that can really impact your start line and the attention that your dog is giving. So you kind of know your dog, and you want to scout that out in advance and kind of know the situation for you and your dog. All right. Noella, one last question. Noella has a dog who will break her start if something is making her nervous and you get too far ahead. Could be another dog behind you. That is very, very common. And sometimes what will happen is the dog gets up, right, and they kind of start walking towards you. Okay, very, very common. Again, there's something in the environment, they're not comfortable, there's a little bit of almost separation anxiety component to this, not true separation anxiety, but you're kind of your dog's safety net. Okay, think about it this way. From the time you take your dog out of the crate, you're always with your dog on the leash, and even if there's a million other dogs, even if there's scary looking dog, your dog has learned to trust you in the trial environment, and you're going to escort them all the way there. Well, now suddenly you're going to leave them alone. You're going to take a long lead out, and they're really by themselves, and they may be around people or nearby dogs or things happening behind them that they're very uncomfortable with. So that's going to explain a lot of that behavior. And I think the two things that you need to do are try to relieve that anxiety, right? Get your dog a little bit more confidence, and a lot of that can happen on the training field and doing this training again in as close to a show environment as possible with those kind of things that you know bother your dogs. Borrow a kid, borrow a guy with a mustache, borrow someone who's wearing a hat. Bring that into your training field, really pump up the rewards and the reinforcement for your dog. All right? So, that's what I would recommend. And also, if it's not hurting you in terms of handling, don't lead out quite as far. That's something that you can build up gradually over time. So in the video we showed you of Trek really doesn't do that anymore. When she started, she did that. We worked with this with Brittany, and now Trek's a lot better about that. All right? Maybe not quite 100%, but much better than being completely checked out. All right, and then they come off the line much better because they remain connected to you. They're not always guessing. Sometimes they guess, Did she say something? I'm not sure. I'm not gonna run all out towards you, but I'm not gonna stay here either, And so these dogs are gonna split that difference. They're gonna kind of trot out or walk towards you. So you just wanna make sure your criteria is clear, you're using the best reinforcement you can, and you're using those distractions in your training. The bottom line is, most people just aren't training and spending enough time on this behavior in practice. All right.
I'll take the mic.
Go ahead.
We'll wrap up. So one last thing that I wanted to mention about dogs that are slow off the start. There's one other tidbit that I would give, and that is that you might want to shift your reinforcement to have a little bit more of it be releasing the dog to reinforcement rather than walking back to the dog with a reward. So if your dog's sticky in that position, the more you reward that position, the more happy they're going to be there. So you can still release them quickly, take one step and release them, but maybe throw a toy forward. Take a couple of steps, throw the toy forward to kind of encourage that movement off of the start. So last but not least, we hope that you are enjoying these live broadcasts, and make sure that you go to our Bad Dog Agility Facebook page and sign up for notifications for all of our live events. I will tell you, we have some exciting live events coming up. This Bad Dog Agility show we are doing once a week, and for right now until the daylight savings time, it's going to be Wednesday at 4 p.m. But we have Howard Boyle overseas at Crufts on our account, ready to go live to show you an inside look at Crufts. He's going to be doing some interviews of the Americans there, and Crufts is the largest dog show in the world, so it's exciting for us to have a live Bad Dog Agility presence. You don't want to miss out on any of that. I happen to know that Howard, who is a fun and funny guy and is not shy at all, actually put in a formal request with Crufts and with the castle to do a Facebook Live with the Queen of England. Now, I'm not promising this. In fact, I can almost promise that it won't happen. But if you're not watching our lives, then how will you know? So if you want to maybe hear the Queen of England talk about dog agility, then you'll definitely want to make sure that you're getting notifications for all of our lives. His live broadcasts, we are not able to schedule like we do for ours because his schedule is not as predictable. So he's just going to go live and you'll get a notification, and then you may have to catch the replay, but make sure you're paying attention to that. And I think that's it for this week's show. Happy training.